about the death of the Russian opposition leader, Alexei Navalny. Now, this is going to be discussed by MPs today as they return to Westminster.
His family have accused the Russian President, Putin, of orchestrating his murder and say authorities are still withholding his body.
That's right. He was the vocal Putin critic, of course. He exposed the Russian president's most luxurious assets to shine a light on the alleged Kremlin corruption.
His body, bruised, was found in... We think it's in a hostel morgue in the Arctic 2 days after he died in a nearby prison. Unsubstantiated reports say that there were bruises which could have been from chest compressions performed during CPR.
That's right. So what should be a reasonable response from the UK? Now, I've upset Andrew Pearce because...
well, not for the first time.
I said on Twitter, when all of the leaders from around the world came out within 5 seconds of Navalny's death being announced and saying this is definitely Putin. And I think we don't know if this is definitely Putin at the moment. We don't know. We don't know if he could have died from natural causes. We don't know whether he's been bumped off by Putin. We don't know whether he's been killed by the CIA to clamp down on the Putin PR machine, which has been on overdrive since Tucker Carlson's interview with the Russian leader.
Which was a disaster. Walking around the supermarket with a shopping trolley saying how cheap are goods in Moscow, and actually Moscow's a much prettier, nicer and safer place to live than America. I think probably you should live in one of the tower blocks in Moscow, Tucker Carlson, before you come to that conclusion.
It was...
disaster.
Yeah, I...
He looked like Putin's fool. I was surprised and disappointed.
I liked it. Did you watch the whole 2.5 hour sit-down?
No, I didn't. I watched about an hour and a half of it and I lost the will to live by that point.
Well, I think it's really important to watch those things in detail because we are all told every day by the British press, by the global press, America is even worse than we are, that Putin is bad, the West is good. Putin is clearly bad, but it doesn't mean it's that binary. It is not as simple as that. And I think when Cameron came out, and they're going to be discussing it today, and said that there have to be consequences for the death of this man, why do we have to get involved in the UK to somehow fix this problem? Like, I'm genuinely interested to know what your opinion is on that.
Well, I mean, the thing, look, the whole West is agitated by it because, in my view, it's 99%. I would be astonished if he wasn't murdered because he'd been moved. This was his third prison, 1,200 miles from Moscow, in the Arctic Circle. He looked very healthy in that video, which was sneaked out the day before, and then mysteriously he's dead. There are reports that the Russian Secret Service arrived in the prison the day before he died. Putin's got form. He can't bear being mocked. And I think it's a sign of Putin's weakness that he wants Navalny out of the way because there are elections coming up. CIA didn't want to bump off Navalny. They wanted him alive because he was viable opposition. Now there is none.
Possibly. There's all sorts of theories about it, aren't there? It could be that... What I find, it could be that Putin being emboldened by the Tucker Carlson interview, which did more, I think, for the reputation of Putin than anything has done ever. Whether you think that is good or bad is completely personal choice. But I think that what was interesting for me from that Tucker Carlson interview was hearing how Putin views the Ukraine situation, because ultimately that is what is affecting us here more than anything. Is what is going on in Ukraine.
And that is why there will be further sanctions because the invasion of Ukraine, which, remember, happened in 2014 and then was extended with the second part of the conflict. Huge impact on oil prices, huge impact on food prices, and he's trying to squeeze the life out of the Ukrainian leader. And very interesting, I thought it was quite interesting, the House of Representatives is on holiday for 2 weeks, and so the extra $60 billion in aid for Ukraine is not happening. And we've just seen Ukraine withdrawn from a town, a rare Russian victory. And this is all coming at a very, very difficult time because we've got Trump in the wings. Is he going to continue to support Ukraine? Does the British taxpayer want to continue to support Ukraine?
No.
But I think and today we'll hear Cameron in the House of Lords, and then we'll hear somebody in the Commons making a statement. But there'll be unanimity, and I suspect very few, Bev, in the Commons will share your scepticism, if that's the right word, about how the way he was killed.
I just don't know. I don't know. I don't have any evidence either way. And neither does Biden, neither does Cameron.
If I had to put money on it, if you had to put money on it...
But you're not putting money on it. You're not putting money on it. What you're doing is you're putting on...
He was murdered. Because he murders people all the time. He murders people all the time.
Every leader around the world kills people at some point.
He murdered people on British soil. He murdered people on British soil.
But you can't say someone murders someone all the time and therefore they must have murdered this man. I don't know.
It's his modus operandi.
I don't know, and you don't know. Cameron
doesn't
know. Biden doesn't know. Yeah. That's the point. None of you know. And yet everybody leaping out and saying, oh, he was killed by Putin. Cameron saying there must be sanctions against him, which are going to affect us. Well, the British people were already being affected by the amount of money we're spending in Ukraine. We're already tipping towards World War III because of our obsession with keeping Russia where we want it to stay. There's no suggestion, I've always said that there's no suggestion that Putin is an expansionist power. He's got the biggest landmass country in the world.
I think people in Ukraine might disagree with that. He's just expanded into Ukraine massively. And if he wins that, where does he go next? Well, Baltic states, Poland? That's the worry.
His logic, if you listen to him you listen to what he has to say...
You can't say there's evidence of an expansionist power. He's in Ukraine, Bev, and he's been there since 2014, and he's then stepped up the expansion in the last 2 years. It's the second anniversary this week. Did you not notice it?
As he will say, when that war started, it was the Ukrainians who started to bomb the Russians in the Donbass region, in the east, in Donetsk. And that was when he then went in to protect the Russian people, the Russian-speaking people in that area. And here we are 2 years later with all the Western politicians all wanting to spend our taxpayers' money on this ridiculous situation so that Ukraine can stay out of Russia. And Kamala Harris and the NATO has increased 5 times towards Russia. And every single time... I mean, in this interview, we've seen the clip here with Tucker, when Putin said he asked to join NATO. He asked to join NATO. He's asked on multiple occasions. He's always been told, no, we don't want you. Well, why? He said, if I was part of NATO, we would be a force against the Middle East, would be a force against China together. And for whatever reason, subsequent American presidents have said, no, we don't want you. War is profitable. It's very profitable. Anyway, let us know what you think.
Do. You know where to send the emails. And what's the address?
gbviews@gbnews.com.